As war raged in the Netherlands, a much larger and more destructive conflict erupted in much of the rest of Europe, the 30 Years' War. Its origins are complex, but the conflict began in Bohemia, a region roughly corresponding to the modern Czech Republic and then part of the Habsburg monarchy. By 1600, Bohemia was officially Catholic, but it still contained a large Calvinist minority, and many of its nobles were Protestants. The Habsburg rulers, however, were staunch Catholics. Earlier, Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II had attempted to ease tensions by issuing the Letter of Majesty in 1609, which granted freedom of worship and certain political rights to Bohemian Protestants. But this fragile peace collapsed in 1617 when a new Habsburg ruler, Ferdinand II, came to power. He refused to uphold key provisions of the Letter of Majesty. Ferdinand declared that high offices in Bohemia would henceforth be held only by Catholics and that church lands previously seized by Protestants must be returned. This angered both Calvinists and some Catholics who opposed his authoritarian approach. In 1618, Ferdinand's representatives arrived in Prague for a meeting with the Bohemian estates. In a dramatic act of defiance, the predominantly Calvinist nobles seized the imperial envoys and threw them out a palace window, an event known as the Defenestration of Prague. Although the officials survived, the act symbolized a complete break with Habsburg authority. The Bohemian estates declared that Ferdinand was no longer their ruler and offered the crown to Frederick V of the Palatinate, a prominent Calvinist prince of the Holy Roman Empire. Frederick eagerly accepted, setting the stage for a major conflict. The Bohemian crisis, which began as a religious dispute, quickly took on constitutional and political dimensions. Ferdinand, determined not to submit to rebels, prepared to crush the uprising. In 1620, he was elected Holy Roman Emperor, giving him additional authority and allies among the German Catholic princes. With support from the Catholic League, Ferdinand defeated the Bohemian forces and expelled Frederick from both Bohemia and his hereditary lands in the Palatinate. Ferdinand then implemented harsh measures against the Bohemian Calvinists, redistributing their lands to loyal Catholic nobles. These actions alarmed other Protestant princes. Fearing that they too might be dispossessed, they formed alliances to protect themselves. What had begun as a localized Bohemian revolt now broadened into a German civil war between Protestant and Catholic states. In 1625, King Christian IV of Denmark, a Lutheran ruler deeply concerned about the Protestant cause, entered the conflict. His involvement initiated the Danish phase of the war. However, Danish forces were repeatedly defeated by imperial commanders, and by 1629, Ferdinand's armies controlled most of northern Germany. This was the closest the Habsburgs had come to restoring Catholic hegemony over the Holy Roman Empire since the Reformation. But events soon shifted again. The next major Protestant champion was Gustavus Adolphus, the King of Sweden. A brilliant military commander, Gustavus led a disciplined, modernized army into Germany in 1630. His intervention revitalized the Protestant cause. At the same time, France, though a Catholic nation, entered the conflict on the Protestant side. This may seem contradictory, but France's chief minister, Cardinal Richelieu, cared more about weakening the Habsburgs than about supporting Catholic unity. French financial and military support strengthened the Swedish campaign. Swedish and French-backed armies won significant victories, but Gustavus Adolphus was killed in battle in 1632, and no side was able to achieve a decisive breakthrough. The conflict dragged on for another decade. From 1635 onward, the war turned increasingly destructive. Armies roamed across Germany, living off the land and plundering towns and villages. Civilians suffered immensely. By the time the war finally ended in 1648, some regions of Germany had lost as much as 30% of their population to warfare, famine, and disease. Many historians argue that parts of Germany did not fully recover demographically or economically until the 19th century. The conflict concluded with the Peace of Westphalia in 1648, which largely restored the territorial and political arrangements that had existed before the war. The most significant legal change was the recognition of Calvinism as a legitimate religion within the Holy Roman Empire, alongside Catholicism and Lutheranism.